This is my scrapbook, which is virtually my life. But so it starts off my wartime experiences and life. 1939 was the telegram calling me up, which was September 1939. My military identity card, which I had to carry on there. That seems to be stamped 13th of June 1940. I suppose that was an added security since the fall of France and the German invasion was getting a possibility, so that was what I had to have here. And a little house there which we lived in Sharhampton, and we had quite a lot of requisition cars, and there's a picture here of me polishing an enormous Buick, and then with my colonel, our pool of cars outside our headquarters. We used to have what is called bleeding teams, and they consisted of a doctor, 4 nurses, or VADs mostly, 1 medical orderly, RAMC soldier, and 2 fannies, 1 to drive the lorry and 1 to drive the car with the personnel in it. And we'd go to wherever the administration had arranged that we should do this, west from Bristol usually, Taunton down there, or not perhaps so far out from Bristol, or we'd go away and stay in a different town and do all the little towns round there. And Exeter was a great base. I had many happy days that I was billeted in Exeter, and we then drove out to places and would set up our team, much the same as they still do now for the Blood Transfusion Service, and all the civilians who had been organised before turned up to give their pint of blood. And the fanny's job was, first of all, I mean, we had quite a lot of supposedly nursing experience, which of course most of us hadn't had really, in order that we should administer help what we could. So one of us, we donned our white coats and looked terribly important. So one of us would receive the donors as they came in and take their particulars, and the other fanny would look after them and give them cups of tea and that sort of thing after they did, and made sure they rested for a quarter of an hour before they were allowed home again, which is just the same sort of procedure which I believe happens now. So this went on, and I enjoyed this, and of course it was a marvellous thing. But of course we got to know quite a lot about it, and sometimes, we had to advise, because having done it or supervised or been around and had so many dramas, sometimes with some of the donors, we were always frightened when a red-headed person came in, because they invariably fainted. It was most extraordinary that they just weren't able somehow to do it. I mean, it was the thought of it. And we would go to a factory, and we'd go quite often up to the British aircraft industry up at Filton, outside Bristol. And they were practically all men. And of course, you lot, well, you were then absolutely hopeless. One would faint, the whole lot would go down. The women were much better. Or we'd go to the little country villages in Dorset or somewhere, Piddle-Trendhyde, and all these wonderful names, which you couldn't even think of. My brother was in the Rifle Brigade, and he was in North Africa, and he was wounded in an ambush that he had to do, and he was lying where the bullet had gone in, one come right through. He wasn't too bad, but anyway, he was in a casualty clearing station, and in the next bed to him was his corporal, who was very badly wounded and had his leg shot about and things like that. And anyway, and so when the medical officer there in the casualty clearing unit came along with a transfusion bottle, my brother looked rather interestedly at it and said to the doctor in the next door bed, "Does this blood come from Bristol?" And the doctor said, "Yes, why do you ask?" "Oh," said my brother, "my sister works there." So anyway, was fascinated to see what was happening, thought that I would like to know what happened to the blood at the other end, which we'd collected so carefully from the civilians, you see here, that how it really worked. And he said the corporal it saved his life, but he had to lose his leg. But nevertheless, without blood transfusion, he said he thought you might like to hear what, the final story. He wrote to me about that. I've got his letter, which I kept too, so I not only have remembered it, but I've actually got it written down, which I came across it the other day, and it's stuck in there too.